In today's world, everybody wishes to be happy. Who doesn't want to stay happy? But you may not want to sacrifice everything for happiness, but you clearly want to enjoy yourself. There are a bunch of medicines on the market for solving the issues of depression, and the procedures for achieving happiness are often sold and promoted as something you can get and that which you need above everything. The pursuit of happiness is so necessary to our idea of the good life that it was announced to be a holy right by Thomas Jefferson. It outlines the American dream like no other belief. For many people, it is the definitions of life itself. However, it is hard for some to fathom that there's a way of thinking that tells you don't want to at least try to be as happy as you can be. Well, there's one philosopher who doesn't think you need happiness in itself, and he is none other than Friedrich Nietzsche. Nietzsche saw the mere pursuit of happiness defined as something which gives pleasure as a dull waste of human life. He claimed mankind does not strive for happiness, only the Englishman does, referencing the English philosophy of utilitarianism and its focus on absolute happiness, a philosophy which he opposed with his parable of the last man, a pathetic being who lives in a time where society has created happiness. In Nietzsche's sense, they were happy, but they stayed to be dull. Nietzsche was instead attached to the intentions of finding importance in life. He recommended the Übermensch as his creations of meaning in life as an option to the last man, and gave us the idea of people who were ready to undertake enormous suffering in the name of a purpose that they have set as examples. Can you imagine that Michelangelo found painting the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel pleasant? Nikola Tesla announced that his celibacy was important to his work, but he complained about his loneliness during his whole life. Is that happiness? If these great minds wanted happiness in itself, would they have done what they did? According to Nietzsche, it's a clear no. They chose to follow the meaning and found it. This is what people really want, and psychology often agrees to it. Psychologist Viktor Frankl recommended that the key to good living is to find meaning, going so far as to propose positive meanings for the suffering of his patients to support them in moving ahead. His ideas, published in the best-selling work Man's Search for Meaning, were inspired by his time at a concentration camp and his notes on how people suffering unbelievable horrors were able to keep going through meaning instead of happiness. There is also a concern of utilitarian maths for Nietzsche. In his mind, those who do incredible things suffer extremely. Those who do small things suffer less. In this case, if one has to try to do utilitarian calculations, it would be hard, if not impossible, to find a scenario where the net happiness is very big. This is why The Last Man book is so dull. The only things that give him a large net payoff in happiness are very dull affairs, and not the suffering-inducing activities that we would find fascinating. This problem is called the paradox of happiness. Activities which are done to quickly increase pleasure are uncertain to have a high payoff. Nietzsche understood this problem and gave it voice when he said that joy accompanies, joy does not move. A person who admires gathering stamps does not do it because it makes him happy, but because he finds it interesting. Happiness is just a side effect. A person who suffers for years while making a masterpiece is not made happy by it, but instead, he finds joy in the beauty they generate after the cycle. Well, there is some disagreement to Nietzsche's idea. The great English thinker Bertrand Russell criticized Nietzsche in his masterpiece A History of Western Philosophy. Popular criticisms of Nietzsche were what he saw as cruelty and exposure to suffering as he compared Nietzschean ideas against the compassionate Buddha. Nietzsche said, "Why go about crying because small people suffer? Or for that matter, because great men suffer. Trivial people suffer trivially, great men suffer greatly, and great sufferings are not to be mourned, because they are grand. Your purpose is a simply negative one, absence of suffering, which can be completely secured by non-existence. I, on the other hand, have positive ideals. I admire Alcibiades and the Emperor Frederick II and Napoleon. For the sake of such men, any suffering is precious." In these remarks, Russell sets off the ideas of the Buddha and proposes an honest observer would always be with him. Russell, whose stories of Nietzsche were less than valid and who suffered from having poor translations to work with, saw his philosophy as the stepping stone to fascism and as being pointed on pain. So, while you may value something above happiness, how much are you ready to suffer to get it? Nietzsche complains that humans will give their all for a higher value. Well, many people still disagree with this statement. Are you even able to follow happiness and receive it? Or is Nietzsche correct that you must concentrate elsewhere in order to even wish for happiness later on? Tell us in the comments section down below. Well, that's it for today. Don't forget to hit the red subscribe button so that you never miss out on any of our videos. See you soon. Thanks for